بضيوفنا الكرام. أولاً رجاءً نرحب بأحد الخبراء الرائعين في الإمارات العربية المتحدة، وهو بطل للخيول العربية السيد خالد. بجانبه من المملكة المتحدة وتعمل الآن في الإمارات العربية المتحدة مديرة الأبحاث الدكتورة ساندرا ووشر. بعدها ننتقل إلى فرنسا. راني
She has over 60 horses. René Laricoche from France. Also from France, one of the gentlemen who owns one of the biggest studs in the world and stands 17, yes, 17 stallions. Emmanuel Cessac. Also from France, the owner and manager with over 150 horses for breeding and pre-training in the southwest of France. Please welcome Paul Gascin. And at the far end, a man who's one of the top guys in the world of Arabian racing, the owner and breeder of Dahès, board member at IFA and France Gallo from France. Please welcome Jean-Pierre Deroubet.
Merci.
Now, I'm just going to ask some general questions just to get the ball rolling. And then afterwards, we have microphones situated around the arena today where people can ask questions. We are live. We don't know what those questions will be. And that's why we have 6 of the top brains in the world of Arabian racing. So my first question to all of you, and I put it to you first, Khaled, because you're sitting next to me. How do you breed a potential top-class horse? Is it the stallion? Is it the dam? Is it the breeding of generations? Or is it the look of the horse? How do you breed a top-class horse?
I would like to thank Her Highness Sheikh Fatma bint Mubarak and His Highness Sheikh Mansoor for all what they are doing in the world to promote the Arabian horses. To answer your question, all together, I mean, you need to have the best mare you can get and to try to get the best stallion or to correct the weak things in that bloodline or in that mare you have. And it doesn't stop that. I mean, when you will get the foal, you need to look after it, to grow it. It depends to which climate or which country, because each country has their own challenge. Like we are in the Middle East, we have challenge with the weather, with many feeding, water, all those together, all those challenge to the breeders or to the owner who would like to breed in this climate.
Sandra, what is your opinion? How do you breed a top-class horse?
Well, I'm much more involved with the actual breeding of them, as in the reproductive mechanisms of getting them pregnant. So I would advise people to try and use younger animals as well, because you're going to get much more, much quicker, much better results, and you're going to shorten your generation interval as well. So there's also a lot of evidence when you're actually born, you're born as a woman with the full complement of oocytes that you have. And these are in a state of arrest, and it's not until you start ovulating and cycling that these oocytes are released. These are the eggs that are going to make your embryo. And as you age, your chromosomes and the different things within that oocyte start to age as well. So there are much more chromosomal defects, and there's a lot of evidence coming out that when you're a little bit older, the offspring are not quite so good. So I would advise people to try and use their mares when they're younger. So as soon as you know you have a mare of genetic merit, and I know that can be a little bit difficult if you're waiting to see if she performs on the race course, I would be tempted to start breeding from her, even if that's via embryo transfer, to try and get some embryos from her.
Interesting. Renee, you're a top breeder. You know how to breed champions. How do you do it?
It's a complicated question. It's a feeling when you really know your mares, you try to analyze the production of these mares, and you try to also analyze the production of stallions in order to complete one another. What is very important is to really know the stems and to find the best crossing possible. Furthermore, it's important to know what do we want to produce. Certain countries want horses who run on sand, other on pasture. So we have to know what do we need when we are breeding, and what is important is to know why are we breeding this horse rather than this other. It all depends on the purpose, on the country. All these observations will allow us to find the best crossing. But I would also like to say that there's a lot of randomness. Sometimes we can imagine, for example, that this mare could be crossed with this stallion. However, the newborn horse could always be different from what we imagined.
Very interesting. Emmanuel, what is your answer to the question? You breed so many horses, you've got 17 stallions. What's your thoughts?
Thank you, Sheikh Mansoor, for this very rich festival. We are a big family. In France, I also see people in the audience who are from France, and Lara, who's a good friend. And science has shown us that 30% of what is an adult horse is genetics. The other 70% is affected by the environment of the horse, but also the interaction with the horse and the human. The work of a breeder is to choose mare that have very good genetic potential, to cross them with good stallions with genetic complementarity, but 70% of the work is done by the breeder that has to ensure the quality of the food, the follow-up with vets, that has to follow up with training, with the choice of jockey. These are 70% that will allow the genetics of the horse to express themselves.
Very interesting answer. Paul, if I can come to you. You've got over 150 horses you look after every day. What is your answer to the question, how do you breed a top-class horse?
First of all, I would like to thank the authorities for allowing us to exchange on these very interesting topics and for gathering us every year. Just to follow up on what my colleagues just said, who have given a very complete analysis, I think that we have two types of breeders today. Those like Mrs. Koch, who have very good stems from many, many years, so they know their stems, they know their genetic pool, and there's also a lot of new breeders, young breeders, and I am one of them. We started breeding in 2000, which is very recent in terms of breeding. We need access to mares. And here I would agree with Mr. Nabuda, who said that we have to dig in the genetic pool in order to get a first-class horse. So if we have a very good mare that we cross with a very good stallion, of course we can adapt to the country and to its challenges. As my colleague said, here we have other issues like temperature or food. In Europe, we have a nicer climate, but to work with a very good genetic pool, both on the stallion or on the mare side, is essential.
And finally, Jean-Pierre, you bred Dahes. How do you breed a top-class horse?
So I think that you must study the pedigree, turn the pages, look at the best cross possible for your mare and choose a stallion. This is point number one. But this is only theory. It's just a piece of study. Then you must know, Said Paul, if you're not a breeder since a very long time, you must know about the size of your mare, the behavior, and try to inspect the brothers, the sisters, to look how they are. So inspect the horses in different places to have a better idea about the whole family. Then you have to be careful about the distance, as it was mentioned before, and you need to check the main criteria regarding the speed, the distance, and then you can choose among the stallions crossing well with your mare, one stallion bringing speed or stamina. It's up to you. And again, conformation is very important. Bone, feet, size, the behavior. Is your mare, aggressive, quiet, and stallion, how is the behavior of the stallion, what is the reputation? It's a mixture of all those things. And at the end, you are a good breeder, or if you're not a good breeder, as it was said by Mr. Sheikh, it's a human, say, the quality of the food, the quality of the paddocks, the quality of the people taking care of your horses. It's a mixture of all this. It has to be logical, and you need to have a lot of luck.
We always need luck, it's true. And the harder you work, the luckier you get. It's an amazing saying. Can I ask the second question? This is interesting. Does it matter where we breed horses? The Middle East, Europe, America, Australia? Does it matter, Khalid?
Each country has their own challenge. I will be talking about the Middle East since I am from here. Challenge of the weather, how those babies will cope with this weather, especially with summer. Water, as you know, it's salty, hot. It reached to 55 sometime in summer. Feed, we import it or we buy it from the best manufacturer here in the United Arab Emirates, but we need to analyze it. We need to see what is missing and to correct it with the right people, with the right manufacturer here in UAE or from overseas. Only the problem from overseas, the time until it reach and you will store it. So if you can buy it locally, much better. Expertise, of course, in Europe, much more than the available here. So this is by itself challenge for the young breeder. All those together, it's big challenge for any breeder. But in the end of the day, if he has his own aim, he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's breeding for, which distance, so he can use the right mare or the right stallions. Of course, in all this thing I learned, there is no guarantee. With the horses or breeding horses, there is no guarantee. At the end of the day, you do your best from the facility that you can get available here, and remaining depends to God. I mean, but you need to do your best.
Sandra, you used to work with Professor Twink Allen, the late father-in-law of the great Frankie Dettori. And so you studied in Newmarket, the UK. You're now here in the UAE, head of Sharjah Equine Hospital. What are your thoughts to that question?
Well, I think wherever you are, whichever country you're breeding horses in, young stock need to be well exercised and have plenty of ability to run around and develop and grow and get the right muscle structure, get strong tendons, ligaments, all those other things. And that's always a challenge in the UAE where you have much smaller areas, not so much grass paddocks, that type of thing. But I think just as importantly, it's very important to remember that your mares as well, when they're in foal, will also do significantly better if they have access to good grazing, exercise again. We see a lot of mares come in, much more show mares than racing mares, but we see mares come in that really don't have enough exercise when they're pregnant, and so when it comes to foaling, it's somewhat more difficult for them, so they're more likely to have dystocias and problems like that, particularly if they're overweight. But I think, although you would think automatically that the best place probably to raise young horses for racing would be Europe or somewhere where the weather is more inclement and you have also grass paddocks and that type of thing, I think there is an element of horses adapting to their environment as well. So probably it is quite important for some of the horses that race here to actually be raised here as well.
Interesting. Renee, what would you say to the question? Where would you like to breed? France, Europe, America, Middle East? Does it make any difference?
Oui, alors d'abord, first of all, excuse me, I had to start with this point. I want to thank Sheikh Mansoor bin Zayed Al Nahyan for organizing this amazing festival. And I would also like to thank him for his help, assistance, because for us, races are the most important thing. I would also like to thank Lara and her entire team. Lara has a very contagious energy, and we know that at the level of organization everything goes smoothly, and she is always working with a smile. And to answer your question, it is true that breeding is observing even the tiniest details. We have 3 varieties of food or hay that we give to horses depending on their growth. Sometimes we give hay that is richer than the other, just to tell you that details are extremely important. But the analysis that I make, and I'm not saying that this is the absolute truth, so we are just breeders and we try to do our best, but when we speak without talking about one country or another, I would like to say that I have noticed that it is hard to raise horses when they are born early. So I decided one year to send my male foals to another site in France, far from where I live, that has a very high quality of soil. So I sent all my male foals there to this region in France, and I left the female foal in order to observe the difference. And I noticed that the result is very interesting. These foals completed 3 years last year, and last year is the year where the females won when they were 3 years. So the fillies that were raised at home were giving earlier results than those that were raised in the different region, even if it was a reputable region. So sometimes, as we said, things are in the hands of God, and we try to do our best. However, nature, seasons, climate, knowing that climate is evolving, all of this can affect the process, and this is why we are passionate. We don't master everything. We try to do our best, and at the end of the day, we should leave nature do its work.
Listening to these world experts, it is absolutely superb. And Emmanuel, what is your answer to the question?
Obviously, the Arabian horse is bred in many parts of the world with various natures and various issues. What interests me in the Arabian horse is that this horse was not breeded in grass, and it has a very, very high capacity of adaptation, and I think we should keep the rustic character of the Arabian horse, and I think that the good strategy is to know the needs of your horse in order to complement the needs with food. We have a lot of tools that we can use, like blood analysis, for example, that can allow us to know every 3 months if our horse needs certain vitamins, calcium, or other things. We have to analyze all this data in order to prepare our horses to become champions. As Mrs. Kosh says, also things are in the hand of God, but our role as a breeder is to put all of our chances in our horses, and regardless of the country where we are breeding, we can find the best method in order to guarantee that our horses will be champions.
Paul Basquin, how would you answer that question?
I think that today we have races of pure-blood Arabian horses everywhere, or thoroughbred Arabian horses everywhere in the world with very different contexts. And just to add to what was already said, with which I agree, today every owner should know what they want, owner or breeder, of course. So when we want a horse to race, do we want this horse to race in France or in the Middle East? So practically, I think that it is true, like Dr. Walshire said, it is true that horses need spaces. This is absolutely true. They also need temperatures that are not extreme, that are as moderate as possible, and this gives a guarantee of solidity for young horses. Young horses need a lot of space in order to run outside, to gallop outside. So owners and breeders who want their horses to gallop in France, I encourage them to breed in France, because we have a lot of offers in France, a lot of stud farm, and I also understand the need to breed in the Middle East in order to allow these horses to race in the Middle East and to adapt to the Middle East, like Mr. Nabuda just said. And in order to reach the best equation possible in order to enhance performance.
Interesting answer, yes. Jean-Pierre, finally, you've heard what everyone has been talking about. What are your thoughts?
I will say my experience. My father was a manager of a very big farm in Normandy. I'm talking about thoroughbred horses. And my brother took care of our own farm, based in Normandy, next to the farm managed by my father. About 15 years ago, I had the opportunity to breed Arabian horses. And we realized very soon that the babies, the foals, were too fat, the ground too wet, muddy, and not very good for this kind of horses. So we found a partnership with another farm, Arras du Berlay, in the middle of France, where it's very dry in summertime, and where the horses are more comfortable. So we kept the mares, and then the babies sent to another place. I think it is important to know the quality of your soil, the weather, and to realize that the Arabian horses are completely different than thoroughbred horses. It's another type of horses. You know, they're close to you, you love them, not the same way you love thoroughbred horses. They look at you, their behavior, everything is different. So if you don't understand Arabian horses, you're not a good breeder. And Kosh just said something very true. You know, you have to know your family, your horses, you have to be with them, you have to and then it's more easy to choose a stallion, to do it. The country is not important. You can breed anywhere. If you give good care, good feed, you will have good horses, inshallah.
Inshallah. That is, it's fascinating, isn't it? It's lovely. We work with horses every day, and it's lovely hearing the different views from different people around the world and their comments on it. And here's another question for you, and I think this is interesting. Khalid, I'm going to start with you. How do we use the new technology? Embryo transfer or the natural way? Is one better than the other? What's your answer to that?
I believe, I am a person who believes in natural cover. Of course, the new technology, it's very good, especially when you have a mare very old or a mare can't carry the baby for a different reason. From what I saw, there is certain farms where they have the same year 5 brothers or sisters, but in the end you will see one who is the winner, and the others maybe they just average or even they didn't race. The reason I don't know, since I am not involved in this, but I believe in natural covering.
That's interesting.
Thank you.
So, natural covering. Would you agree with that?
No, I'm going to play devil's advocate here. So I think embryo transfer is a very, very good tool in the right situation. So as Nabuda just said, that it's very important that if you had a mare that was too old, so remember as mares age, also the endometrium ages, which means when they're carrying a foal, you're going to get a substandard type of placentation. And it's the placenta that's feeding the foal, so you could end up with a substandard foal from an older mare. But if you take that embryo and put it into a younger mare, then it will benefit from the enhanced placentation due to the good endometrium. Also in the cases, as you already said, mares that are lame or can't carry their own foal or can't actually carry a foal to term even if they're younger and they're perfectly sound. So this technology opens a huge advantage, I think, sometimes, and stretching on from that is also the ability now to freeze embryos. So we now have techniques that means you can freeze your embryos, put them into liquid nitrogen just as you would semen if you were using frozen semen, and those embryos you can then transfer them to a recipient mare when you have a good recipient or at a time of year that it suits you, that you want the foal to be born. So you could, for example, with a race mare, you could take embryos from her while she's still racing and they could be put into a tank, and then when you're ready you can then transfer those embryos, and we can do that now with very good success rates. But the other thing that I think embryo transfer, if people are breeding and using embryo transfer and they have a foal and they don't like the foal when it's born, or it has a crooked leg, or it's a bit small, or it's not quite what they had in mind, it always gets blamed on the embryo transfer. And in some cases it can be the embryo transfer if you haven't selected the recipient mare very well. So it's important to remember, if you are going to do embryo transfer, that the recipient, so the mare that's going to carry that embryo, is the best possible mare you can use. So you must use one that's reasonably young, preferably that's had a foal before. So you know, first of all, that she has good maternal skills, and also she will also have a slightly larger foal, normally the second pregnancy. She should also be a mare that is kept in good condition and is the same size as the donor mare. So we see this a lot. We do embryo transfer. We ask clients to bring in recipient mares for their mares, and they often bring in, oh, I've got a couple of old things in the paddock, they'll do. Well, they won't. You need to use the best possible recipients if you want the best possible foals to do embryo transfer with. And that is something in this country we struggle a little bit with, to find good recipient mares. But it really is so important. That mare is your incubator for your potential champion racehorse, so make sure you give it the best possible uterus to grow up in before it even hits the ground.
Sandra, that's fascinating. It's lovely hearing it from a completely different side, from the doctor, from the professor. Renee, as a top breeder, what are your thoughts? Natural or embryo?
I think that the answers of my fellow panelists are very interesting, and I think that I will have an ambiguous answer. I am for progress, and is, as it seems, we have two winners, one which is an embryo transfer and the other one is a natural pregnancy. I agree that the embryo transfer has a lot of, or gives a lot of possibilities, especially mares that maybe are old or for a reason or another cannot maintain cannot carry two periods. So the embryo transfer is a good solution and will allow us to maintain the genetic power. However, I also agree with my fellow panelists that the result of the embryo transfer is the responsibility of the breeder, which means that for the breeder, the quality of the mare is essential, whether in the direct pregnancy or in embryo transfer. If you have a mare that's a bad mother, doesn't have milk, or any other issues, it won't be a good mare. Also, it's important to choose well the recipient. She shouldn't be too big with too much milk, and then the foal will be too strong and will have problems in its articulation. If the mare is mean, the foal will have a lot of fears and anguish. So all of these observations should come from the breeder, and for me the success of breeding is through observation of the minor details, all the details, and we've tried with some mares artificial insemination, and then we saw that when we left it to nature, the mare got pregnant. So it means also that here observation is important, and it's true that if you want to remain with nature, it's important to follow these methods. We talk a lot about embryo transfer, and we say that we'll use the best mares that will have many foals, and that we will cover our genetic characteristics, but I don't think that the embryo transfer is responsible for that. I think that the current world is evolving and is accelerating, that breeders want to see quick results faster than before, while breeding is something in the long run. It's a long-term activity, and you should have a lot of patience, and you should know that today's winner is not necessarily that will reproduce later. Sometimes mares will give you excellent products, and another mare, her sister, maybe will have less quality production, but will do it better, or things will be better in the second or third generation. So you have to give it time, and there's also a feeling. So if the breeder knows well his mares and production, they can feel which is the best choice.
Move on to Emmanuel. You've got 17 stallions at your stud. Are you natural, embryo? What do you prefer?
I don't have a preference at all. I just have a story to share with you. We talk about modern reproduction through embryo transfer, and this has been controversial for 20 years, whether to know if the stud will gallop or not, what will be the performance. Many studs came through embryo transfer. I think that on the technical level, what's interesting is to know that a stud could have 2,000 foals around the world. This is the case of Durban and some other known studs, and that mares are limited to 10 to 15 in their career. And I think it's sad not to use the female genetic pool of high quality in order to enrich our race, and that a male through embryo transfer could have 40 foals. And that's not shocking given that the stud can have up to 2,000 foals. That's my personal view. I think that this technique is at the service of progress. Progress helps genetics, and that the champions of tomorrow will be realized by today's technology. We can't go backward. However, I think that it's interesting, in my opinion, to have a harmonization of the transfer of embryo by the WAHO, because in certain countries there could be one only, while other countries allow up to 15 embryo transfers from the same mare. So I think that the WAHO should harmonize conditions so that all countries agree to the same regulations. Today there's another technology that was banned since 2013 by the WAHO, which is have in vitro, then freeze, and then re-implant the embryos. This technique is practiced in certain countries of the world. Usually, this is banned by Article 21 of the WAHO. And I think that we have to make sure that these techniques do not give contrary results. They have to be at the service of technology, but not and evolution, but not used for cheating.
Thoughts? Embryo, natural, both? What do you think?
I don't have a preference, and as Emmanuel has said, I think that the embryo transfer has proven that it's possible to be able to breed very good race horses like Brass and others that we've seen over the past 20 years. So there's no doubt that and from practical experience, we saw that it's possible to breed a very good horse, whether from natural or embryo transfer. So it's not a preference. I think that the embryo transfer is an additional tool at the service of breeders. As Renee has said, this is an aspect of progress and allows in many cases to get a foal if the mare is too old maybe, or cannot carry to term. So that's positive. However, just if we wanted to put ourselves in the place of those who are starting up as breeders, an embryo transfer also allows access to a pool of mares and genetic characteristics that usually are very hard to buy or have access to unless you've been a breeder for a very long time, for decades. And so this allows you to buy an embryo from a breeder that has a very good mare, and to hope to have a mare of the same quality in order to improve the genetic pool you have.
This is absolutely superb. These answers that we're getting are incredible. And Jean-Pierre, I'm coming to you just to say, after this answer, if anybody would like to ask a question of this incredible panel, please put your hand up and we will bring a microphone towards you, because that is what this is all about. Jean-Pierre, finish with you. What are your thoughts?
My opinion is that we must protect the mare. You know, the mare is a gift of God. It's supposed to produce babies, not to produce too many babies. The second point is that you have a difference between the small breeders and the big breeders. When I say the big breeders, I mean the rich breeders. You know, it's quite expensive, the transfer of embryo. So the position of the French AFAC, the Federation of Arabian Horses, is one embryo in the life of one mare, not more. You know, this is a way to produce one more babies, maybe when the mare is too old, when the mare has a problem, but it cannot be in these three. You have to be careful to multiply the number of horses with the same pedigree. I don't think it's a good idea to think about, and we have different opinions, but we have to share, you know, and respect the opinions of each other. But my opinion is one baby by transfer of embryo during the life of one mare. Thank you.
Well, there we have it. So the hand has gone up from this gentleman in the middle, and I'm coming round now just to give you the microphone. And when I do, would you say your name, where are you from, and please ask your question. I'll do this gentleman first. I will come to you, Elizabeth. Sir, over to you.
Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah.
In the name of God Almighty, the most gracious, the most merciful, thank you very much for the organizers of the World Arabian Horse Racing Forum. I have some questions. The first question is about isolating male and female. Is it in muddy or grassy farms? What is the objective behind that? And the other question for Abu Khalifa. We always hear in the classification of the horses, are there certain genetics, or it's a saying or a proverb, if there is definitely preferences for certain horses or certain pedigrees for these grassy or soil horses, there is certain classification as well. So what are the horses that could be there? Is it the genes that hold this characteristic, or it is in the form of the horses? This is one question. Also another question for Mr. Emmanuel. You have mentioned that the rate of goes 30%. The remaining are acquired characteristics from the environment, 30%. How is it divided between male and female, as is known that male takes 30 or less and female takes 70% in general? This question you have mentioned last question, Dr. Sandra, or before the last question. Dr. Sandra, you have mentioned that there is a preference for the young horses more than old ones. Does this apply on females or only males? So it is known that some males are delayed in producing, and they do that after a while, more than when they are old, more than being young. And this is last question. Of course, the industrial, I see that it is a perspective, not a question. I see that this is, it is for a certain pedigree, and we shall not wait for one which is consumed. There is a preference that the old horses or the young horses, so certain cases and not all of them.
So, as I was saying before, a mare, she has her full complement of oocytes, so her eggs, when she is born. Whereas a stallion, he is continually producing sperm throughout his life, providing that his testicles do not have a problem. So every 68 days is a sperm cycle in a stallion. So when you sometimes see difference in stallions' fertility, particularly from when they're young to when they're old. First of all, when he's young, as he gets a little bit older, his testicles normally get a little bit larger, and how much semen or sperm you produce is related to the size of your testicles. So that can change, or if he is ill or has a fever or any insult, that will alter the spermogenic cycle. So at some point in that cycle it has an insult, So you won't see that necessarily, and for another quite a long while before he has a deterioration in the quality of his semen. So when you say a younger stallion, sometimes an older stallion can be better. That may be because he's been used when he's too young, so he doesn't have enough sperm to maintain fertility. Or it can be related to some illness or problem he had that you don't see till a little bit later on because you haven't got to the end of that spermatic cycle that was affected. With mares, you have all the oocytes there when they're born, but as they age, these oocytes are held in an arrested state. So it's not until ovulation that they complete the final phases of maturation to make them possible to be fertilized by a sperm. But as you get older, obviously they've been sitting there a long time, so it'd be like trying to breed a baby from me, waste of time. So what you want to do, you will get better offspring from younger mares from a point of view of they will be more fertile. But having said that, if you have a very, very good mare, very good race mare, and she has good genetics, her genetics will probably still outweigh a younger animal that is not got such good genetics. So it's like everything, there's a real balance everywhere, and as we've been talking, a big dollop of luck involved in it all as well.
A big dollop of luck.
Big dollop of luck.
That's a good name for a horse. Big dollop of luck making ground on the other side. Sir, thank you for that question. We have a lady, ma'am, your name, where are you from, and your question. Microphone. Ah, hello. Oops. It needs to be switched on. Yeah, come on, have my microphone. You are one of the top ladies in France, the top lady in the world. Have my microphone.
Merci. Merci.
They're ready to answer. So,
L'élevage.
Breeding is very difficult. You don't have any holidays. You don't celebrate Christmas or any other holiday. This is breeding. If you are serious about it, I want to tell you a story. In 2022, until 2023 in France, we lost good breeders. We lost Mr. Plantin, Guy Barry, Lolotois, Serge Raffaello, everybody knows him. Dupont stud farm, so we lost 5 stud farms, and nobody took over because their children did not want to take over because it's a very difficult profession. And I think there should be a succession. I start with myself. I didn't prepare my succession, and I started 2 years ago to work on that. I said that it's important to prepare the succession so that we don't lose what we have, because the good horses are being lost. And here you've had Sheikh Zayed that gave you principles to respect thoroughbred and Arabian horses, and Sheikh Mansoor followed in the steps of his father. And I am really affected by everything in the Middle East. I traveled around and I saw amazing things. Once I was in Qatar and I saw kids playing, and I was watching them. They were playing. That was more than 20 years ago, and I was looking at someone a kid who wasn't playing and was watching the races, and it turned out to be Al-Khwali, that one lady princess, and I've known him as a kid until now. He has the spirit and the love of the Arabian horse, and Arabian horses are part of us. You either love it or you don't. In Tunisia also I met people that have been in the industry from their grandfather to their father to them. This is Muhammad Zayed, and I've seen a lot of similar examples. For instance, in Morocco, And I always talk about handing over, about this succession. Otherwise, we cannot ensure continuity. When I look at my friend Khalid, the love he has for horses, and horses love you back. Renee, all of you. We talk about embryos, and I've always preferred natural ways because we are the old generation, and we always should have respect. And please, please prepare for the future.
Absolutely wonderful. And that's what this conference is all about. We have people here from all over the world. Hang on, Lara wants to say something. Sir, I will come to you very soon. Lara?
The gentleman asked 5 questions.
Oh, right, no problem.
You have to make your panel answer the question.
That's absolutely right.
So please let them answer his questions. So, Emmanuel, I think you were going to answer one question.
Of course, please.
Indeed. So your question was to know the importance of the 30% which comes from genetics, and this is the genetic pool that comes during birth from the crossing of the stallion and the mare. And you asked if 70% is for the mare and 30% for the stallion. 30% is from genetics, equally divided between the male and the female. Maybe the female has a bit more importance, but in the 70% of the environment, because it will give its character, educate its foal, and so we agree that 30% comes from genetics, and this is found at birth, from genetics, and then 70% is the environment where the mother has more influence than the father, but even more the interference comes from people, how breeders will take care of their foals, of their mares, and how they prepare their foals to become big champions. So in my opinion, the male is as important as the female in terms of the genetics transfer. This is proven scientifically. Unfortunately, I'm not the one who discovered that.
Renee?
Pour répondre également à monsieur qui me demandait
to answer also the question about the separation of males and females in breeding. Indeed, males are bred in a separate area than females, but I gave an example where I sent the foals to another farm, and I gave this example just to specify that on the one hand we cannot control everything, that details are important, but that we shouldn't revisit our methods. Breeders always try to do their best, and because I thought my way meant that I bred horses that bloomed later, it allowed me to understand that Arab thoroughbreds just mature later, and we shouldn't try to expedite the pace of the horse. We should respect the horse's pace, and I had tried to send some foals to be bred elsewhere, saying that maybe the problem is in my own technique that doesn't allow me to get foals that mature earlier. But over the 3 years of this experiment, I got results from all the fillies that remained home that matured earlier, and even some breeders and some very known people told me that already I breed horses that matured earlier, and it was the first year that happened. We try our best. It's true that details are important, and the first hours after a fall is born to see how he stands, at what speed, if his head is in the right place. We observe the fall over the few days after birth, and we know that we can intervene in the first couple of months only. After that, it's too late, and so the profession of breeding involves all of that. To go back to what Marie-Ange has said, it's true that in breeding you have to be there round the clock. You feed horses every day, regardless whether it's Christmas or New Year, but we are motivated by our passion, and the thoroughbred Arabian horse, thoroughbred, is extraordinary. Races allow us to breed, and despite that, we have stems for centuries in France, and we see the breeding that happens here in the GCC, and the thoroughbred Arabian horses are still different.
Very interesting, Renee. Khaled?
I will answer this in Arabic. الأخ الفاضل said,
dear colleague, when it comes to the breeding, based on my experience in the UAE, the male has a role in having a superiority in grass, of course.
أخويا إن دولة الإمارات رمل.
As you know, UAE has a lot of staples, and it's sand-based staples, and is different than whether it's in its deep sands or not. So that's why you have to make sure that the paddock itself is not shedded and it's not in deep with sands, to be like half, 50-50. If you have the farm with a lot of sands, you can mix it with wood, or also like the stool of the horse, in order to reach better results. So the horse hoof, the more is bigger, the best for the sand. The smaller it is, it's not going to be beneficial. These, by the way, if it's small, or small based on certain measurements, if it's smaller than the normal thing, this will impact the results of the horse. For example, my horses, I breeded them in the desert and on sands, and the results on Abu Dhabi track on the grass is better than other tracks. Let me confirm that. For example, Al Ain track, it needs other types of horses, like Dahis. They like so much, those types of horses, they like the tracks of Al Ain, because this track is harsh. It's good for some types of horses, but as a breeder, I'm not taking this as a rule of thumb. I need to consider all these details, but at the same time, it's going to be very complicated to consider everything. And at the same time, I need to breed the same measurement of the hoof. If there is an error, this may be as a result of the feed, or as a result of some genetics from the father or the mother, that the hoof is not good, or the hoof, as you know, is boxy, or is not as good as it should be. So you need to identify and to diagnose the problem from the beginning. From my experience in the UAE, I am breeding in sand-based staples. Everything is sand-based, and I'm really happy that I do have satisfactory results. I hope that I answered this question. Thank you.
We have a gentleman who's about to stand up. Sir, have you got your microphone? Please stand, tell us your name, where are you from?
I'm Ribeiro from Brazil. First of all, thank you very much to Sheikh Mansoor for this incredible panel, the incredible discussion. Well, it's very happy to have all of you in front of me, because I'm back in 20 years ago when we started in Brazil the embryo transfer. That's incredible time. We never can be against the technology, the scientists and everything, but we must be carefully with some things. What happens with our breeding for show horses in 20 years? If you back 20 years ago, we have 1,000 of mares breeding every year. Today, we have no more than 100 mares, is one thing. Second thing, that creates a lot of issues. 2 or 3 years ago, every year, you go for the show horses, you see one class with 5 fillies that has exactly the same pedigree. But only one will be the winner, as Mr. Khalid said, only one. Other things is worst. We saw today in our breeding mares with 6, 7 years. That's not breeding anymore. Why? They start washing her, then with 3 years, 4 years, the first time is great, you have 5 embryos. Second time, 3 embryos, 7, 10, but after 2, 3, 4, 5 years, trying to do this, they are not producing anything more. Well, they are not feeling good to produce on that way. That's the problem. That's the incredible. It means we must be against the scientists, against the technology. That's great. But we must to be carefully with the uses of that. That is important. It's our message that we have, clearly. As my grandfather was one of the biggest polo horses breeders in South America, breeder polo horses for Brazil, Argentina, for many years. When I was a boy and 10 years old, I say, Dad, and I call him as Daddy, Daddy, look, that mare produces a great horses, but only one per year. He said me, be carefully, because if you have one diamond of $1 million, if you have 2 at same years, it doesn't mean that you have 2 diamonds of 500,000 each one. Maybe you could have 2 or 3 amethysts of $1. Please, be carefully.
Thank you very much for that. Paul, you would like to respond?
Yes, I asked Emmanuel to back my answer, but what is interesting is specifically that we in France, and we are all united on this point, is that we need a harmonization of these rules about embryo transfer. We need the same rules in every country for the embryo transfer in order not to have abuses, in order not to have a disloyal competition between countries. This is absolutely fundamental. Today, embryo transfer is a tool in the hands of breeders that could help old mares or could help young breeders to have new stems, but this should not be abused, and this should not create a great number of foals from the same mare, because this could have very negative consequences on the sport. This is very important. The harmonization of the rule is very important regarding embryo transfer, and I think that Emmanuel could give even more details and examples about this matter. Indeed, I think that our problem here, so embryo transfer is debatable. I heard people say that they would never resort to it, and then they resorted to it. And I think that when this technique serves progress, so we cannot disregard it. However, this technique can also be dangerous, and it should have limits. We have WAHO, that is a world organization for Arabian horses, that should set these limits. Today, WAHO has been solicited for 4 years by France with an association that is asking for rules, and by other parties, but today we don't have a world harmonization about embryo transfer. So in France we are very proud to say that one mare could not give more than one foal while carrying another. However, all the rules can be disregarded. We could send our mares to give birth to foals in other countries, in Spain, and register these foals in our country. So I think today it's very important for WAHO to be very clear on a uniformed, on a united rule for every country in order for us all to play with the same rules. This is my opinion.
And that is what it's all about. My opinion. And that's why we're here, listening to you. It's fascinating. We have somebody else. Who have we got, sir? Over to you. Yeah.
Sultan Hosni from Sultanate of Oman.
We would like to thank the organizers of the forum. My question is for Emmanuel. When we see that the thoroughbred, the English thoroughbred, there are a number of books in the theories of research, biomachines, and the maps, genome maps, and others, we notice that we don't have these kinds of research for the Arab racing horses. When we will see similar research, or at least the experience of Emmanuel or the experience of Khalid, Khalifa al-Nabuda, so that we can benefit from it and we can bear the fruit of the efforts of all these years. There are numbers of breeders that might die and everything goes at the same time. We need a number of research and books in this field. Thank you very much indeed.
I think that the question is addressed to me. I want to assure you that studies about genes of Arabian horses are being conducted with a Spanish laboratory with which I collaborate or have collaborated for 6 years. We have identified 5 genes, main genes for the Arabian horse that concern the Nairobi gene, the muscle gene, the recuperation gene, and we are also working on a 6th gene that is the character of the horse, because I think that the champions have something in their mindset that is different. So today we have the possibility of testing horses in order to know if they will go 1,600 miles or meters or 2,000 meters. We now have tools in our hands. Indeed, we are in the experimental phase of these tools, but these tools exist and we are working all together. And I am working personally with this Spanish association or organization in order to identify certain genes in Arabian horses. And this work is being conducted. So as I said, we have identified 5 major genes for the Arabian horse. But if I want to go, if I want to answer your question, there is 1,200 genes that we should study in order to better understand a horse. But studies are being conducted and the results are interesting and we could not disregard them.
It's a lot of genes, isn't it? It really is. Anybody else want to comment? Yes, Khalid?
Yes.
You have mentioned 2 issues, which are the research and the experience of one of the breeders in the region that they have produced these horses. As for me, I have finished the book regarding me and the problems that I have faced throughout the 30 years that I've worked in this profession in the UAE, and all the solutions for any new breeder who can benefit from this book. The book is over. We are publishing it. It will be in 3 languages, in the Arabic, in the English, and the French language. So we need to define the publication house only that will adopt it or to deal with it, and this is regarding the experience of our brothers. Last year I have spoken with Miss Rani Koch, because for me she is a teacher, she is experienced in the Arabian horses, and I told her you need to have a book where we can learn and the new generations will learn and my demand for every breeder, such as Mr. Hassan, our great teacher, to learn from him and the generations. We are very lucky that we have been with the experts and we have learned from them and we have spoken to them face to face. But the new generations of breeders, one day we shall leave and others will continue definitely in this field. As for the research, I am pretty sure and convinced that we need research for the Arabian horses, and I think that the Americans are very advanced in the research of genes and other researches that are related to the Arabian horses, and it would be a very good idea, for instance, similar to this forum where Sheikh Mansoor would adopt the study of a certain part of this upbringing, and we are all ready to contribute financially because the research is beneficial for us and it would benefit the new generations. At the same time, it would be very costly, and therefore under the umbrella or a certain umbrella, this will be a very good work. Thank you.
Sir, would you like to stand up? Where are you from? Your name?
Hi, my name is Jonathan Horowitz. I'm from the United States. Thank you to everyone for a great panel. One quick comment before I ask my question. In the United States, we just saw an analysis of the foals that were bred not just for Arabian racing, but across the entire Arabian breed. And in the United States, in the rest of the world, the Arabian breed is sought after not only for racing, but for show and for performance. And 3 of the top 10 breeders in the United States with the most foals for Arabians were race breeders, and that those horses, while primarily being bred for racing, they're finding that there's a market for the breeding lines that they're developing for sport and other endurance, other areas within the breed. I event with an Arabian with race breeding, and he's phenomenal. So while we're all coming together here with the main focus being racing, a great side effect that all the breeders here are producing is that the horses that they're breeding are not just going on to be great race horses, but great in sport and in other equestrian areas as well. So that's just something I wanted to share. My question is primarily directed to Dr. Wilshire. You gave some tips for selecting an effective recipient mare when it comes to embryo transfer, and just taking a step back because I'm interested in learning how much of an effect and what is the effect that the recipient mare has on the foal. And my motivation for asking is, being someone in horse racing, I look at catalogs and racing forms, and I see the sire and the dam, and never considered what the quality of the horse is based upon the recipient mare. And depending upon how you answer, just a follow-up for consideration is, should there, and you don't have to answer this part, but should there potentially be thought to whether for racing a horse is designated as this horse was produced for live cover or was produced through artificial methods, as far as the information that the public should know about the horse, if the effect of the artificial is so significant when it comes to embryo transfer?
Sandra?
Yes, first, the second part of your thing first. I think there should be some sort of documentation, or it should be evident when you look at a horse's name that it was produced by embryo transfer, or there should be some way you can document that so that you can follow that. And it would also help to eventually, when you have enough and you can do statistics and look at some of the research on it, you would actually see if these horses were performing better and the changes in them, what might happen. So recipients, yeah, I think they're so important. It really is the most important thing, and all those things I said earlier, I would go over again and say you need it the right size and everything else. The role it plays is, first of all, the placenta is the thing that's nourishing the foal, so it has to have a good uterus, has to produce, be a good producing mare. She has to have a good milk supply, so she has to be a mare that milks reasonably well. She needs to be the correct size, and there have been studies done where they put genetically larger foals into smaller recipients, and it does stunt the growth of the foal. But the same way, if you put that foal into a larger recipient, you may end up at birth with a larger foal, but you will also alter some of the problems with that foal. So that foal is almost like it's been programmed, and this is where something called epigenetics comes in. So although you have genetics that we've been talking about, these can be modulated by your intrauterine environment. So what happens to you as a foal in utero will influence some of the things that your characteristics when you're actually born. And then there is also, of course, maternal behavior, how she responds to that foal, how she looks after it, how she treats it. And it's quite, I don't think anyone's ever done a study on it, but it's quite interesting. Sometimes in Newmarket or some of the other countries where they're breeding thoroughbreds, they will sometimes wean a foal onto one of these very large chunky mares if they want to send the mother off maybe to the States to be covered naturally or something, to prevent the foal having to travel. And I have always wondered if you are being looked after by a maybe not that athletic, larger, what we'd call a cob type mare, who might be milking very well and giving you lots of milk. Does it have an effect that she's just plodding around the field rather than having a flighty thoroughbred mother? I don't know. I don't think anyone's ever done the study on it, and again, it's very difficult to say because we don't keep these records. And again, with embryo transfer, I think it would be very helpful if on the breeding certificates it did say, actually in the registration documents, that they are by ET, so that we did know. That would help. But just going back a little bit to overproducing with embryo transfer that the chap from Brazil was talking about. Overbreeding is overbreeding, whatever way you do it. So I think the desire, if you think you're going to be able to make a lot of money, sometimes if you have a very valuable foal, is to keep breeding and breeding from embryo transfer, so you think you can sell all the foals. But it always comes down to economics in the end. As you say, if you've got 6 foals that are all the same pedigree, you devalue them as stock anyway. So the economics of it will probably balance it out. And we see this in Europe as well, where there have been excessive use of undertaking ICSI. And this is where you collect the oocytes from a mare and you fertilize them in vitro by injecting a sperm cell. So that has become quite popular with sports horses, and as a result of that, they're now seeing a drop in the pricing of some of these young stock when they're being sold, because basically there's a lot on the market. So it's supply and demand all the time. So yeah.
Very interesting. We have another question. Sir, would you stand up? Tell us your name, where are you from?
Mansour in Tunisie.
Mansour from Tunisia.
Des plus intéressants.
Topic of this panel is very interesting, and I would like to thank the Festival of Sheikh Mansoor for offering us the opportunity of such a debate, and thank you for our panelists. I would like to share my personal experience with you. I have 50 years of experience in the field. Tunisia is a very important country in terms of breeding. I'm talking about natural breeding, and the importance of the mare or the mother is capital in natural breeding. When we have a good mare, we have high chances of having good foals. However, when we take a mediocre stem, we start with a handicap, so we cannot produce high quality foals. So for traditional breeders in Tunisia, the importance of the mare, of the mother, is very important. I would be incapable to give you statistics and numbers because I have not conducted studies. However, the results of races have proven, for the past 50 years, prove this theory, that is that the mother or the mare is the most important.
Would anybody like to comment? Yes?
Juste pour aller.
Yes, I completely agree with you. And I want to explain that the Arabian thoroughbred is an international race thanks to the work of Sheikh Mansoor Zayed Al-Nahyan. Today, we realize that we have horses from Tunisia that are highly performing and that has brought a lot to the French breeding. And we also have other horses like Amr or other horses that show that new technologies allowed the world to use our stems of Arabian horses, and today we are really realizing that we have an Arabian thoroughbred in every country. When we see the horses that win races, sometimes we see that the father is from the UAE, the mother is from Russia, and I think that the Arabian thoroughbred is the result of the effort that was made by the festival.
Very interesting. So we have a question here. Would you please stand up? Sir?
Oui, bien sûr.
Thank you.
Bon,
This is very interesting. Everything that you said is very interesting. Certain things I agree with, certain things I don't agree with. We need, I think, hours and hours to speak about embryo transfer. However, we haven't spoken about the influence on the genetic pool. My question is very simple. Will the champion, for example, Ibraz, who is a very champion horse, will he give his exact genes to his foal? I don't know. Ibraz is the result of an embryo transfer, and so he was probably influenced by his mother, by the intrauterine environment of his mother. So this is very important to take into consideration. Today we have two types of breeders. I know that we have producers and we have breeders. The producers want a final product that they can sell, that they can send to races and who can win. A breeder is someone who is conceiving the new champions, the new mares, and I think we should take this into consideration.
Very interesting. Yes, sir. Would you like to comment? Yes.
Oui, d'abord Hassan.
First of all, Hassan is my friend. We are all friends. Hassan, a horse transmits a genetic pool, which means Ibraz will transmit. So Ibraz will transmit the blood that he received from his mother and from his father. The influence that the carrier mother of Ibraz could have does not enter in the genetic pool of Ibraz. So the foals of Ibraz, yes, it's. You're right, the genes will be transmitted as is, but will these genes be expressed in the same way? I'm sure not. A horse that is the result of an embryo transfer is not the same horse as a horse that is the result of his mother by natural ways, because everything is different. What is genetic? Genetic is, first of all, so what is a horse? The horse is the impact that genetics has on environment. So if we change the environment, while we change the uterus, the intrauterine environment, then we are changing everything. Hassan, the genetic pool does not change. It is transmitted. Of course, the environment has an impact. It modifies. Yes, but I am sure that certain genes cannot be expressed in a certain environment. For example, for size, when you don't give a horse enough food, the horse does not reach its ideal size. So the genetics sometimes cannot be expressed because you are not giving the right environment to the horse. Same goes for the example that I gave for Ibraz. So Ibraz, that a result of embryo transfer is not the same Ibraz that have been born through natural means. I am not against embryo transfer. But
would you like to? Please, Sir Khalid, would you like to respond? Khalid.
Well, يختلف.
The genetic pool, it's different. It varies according to how much the male and female are giving to the foal. Like, for example, two brothers, one is a champion and another one is not champion. I think there's a study in the US that has been done as breeders, because as breeders, we wouldn't be able to know the results of this product until 3 years after, when it's going to run in the track, how many genes have been given from the mom and then from the dad. In the study, as far as I remember, yes, the size, like until reach the maturity, of course. This study shows in the US shows that there is a mechanism in which you can know this fellow how much inherits from the father and from the mother for the speed, for example. And as such, you can decide, are you going to raise this fellow or are you going to let it go because that fellow didn't take the genes of speed, took another genes. And this can be seen like from the same father, from the same mother, and then one is a champion, another one is not. And as a comment to, or just to complement what's mentioned by our friend Hassan, the mallets, for example, I remember them as champion. They do, sometimes they have the same genes and sometimes they don't. In the 4th generation, for example, I haven't seen a horse other than Nishan that is immediately having better products. So that's why the horse, no matter it's good or no matter it's a champion, once it's not a champion anymore, will move to another age about what is the production, what the genes that can be transmitted, and whether the generation will carry on the same champions or not. We have Munjis, Mahab, Al-Buraq, Bahar, Azadi, all these are champions, won a lot of races, and Group 1 also races, but they are all considered horses, and the inherits or the genes have been transmitted exactly and expressed exactly to an average and higher. I'm not talking about average and normal, no, I'm talking about something amazing. And I hope that producers and great farms to consider that we try new types. A lot of people are talking about the context itself, or to go to something that is guaranteed. Nothing is guaranteed in the breeding world. We have our brother Sheikh Kawari, by Princess, Lady Princess, who was a champion. But is it guaranteed to have better products? I hope so. But in the breeding, in the horse, there is no guarantee. So I really want to introduce new types of bloods. Let's introduce new types of bloods because this is going to create better genes and better products.
And we're running out of time. We have 2 more questions. Sir, over here.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Hello everyone, Dr. Darir Al-Hamadi from Algeria, owner and breeder of horses. I would like to express my gratitude to His Highness Sheikh Mansoor for this festival and to all the organizers. And I would like to thank all breeders in the UAE, including our brother Khalid Al-Nabouda, and in Qatar, because they are maintaining and they are doing a lot of efforts. I would like to speak now in French, and my question is directed to Mr. Emmanuel. channel.
Ils ont choisi une terre d'élevage, ils ont choisi Tiaret. Ils ont
construit le barrage à Chefchaoua en 1877. Les premiers travaux qu'ils ont commencé à faire, ils ont croisé les...
Ils ont ramené des
So I wanted to talk about the crossing, and they got from Syria, and they started producing 22,000 fools a year at the time, and they started exporting to the world, and they didn't know, they didn't have the know-how, the genetic know-how, they just wanted to correct some fools. So today we see genetic progress and improvement. There's a lot of progress, especially with artificial insemination and the embryo transfer. In Algeria, we share the point of view of Khalid and Abouda. We always prefer the natural methods. However, unfortunately, we will be limited if we remain in the natural only because we will not have enough genetics. 2 years ago, I started an experience in Algeria. We started getting Siemens, and we developed a lot of known stallions today. My question is that genetics is not an exact science. It's true that there's a lot of research, and earlier you spoke about an important point, which is research. My question is to know whether today there are studies to collect semen and insemination, but are there research about genetic manipulation on these embryos in order to correct some faults that might exist in the genes? I'll be very clear in my answer. First of all, there aren't, and thank God, and may God protect us from genetic manipulation today on horses. We can do gendering to know whether we will have a male or female. I think it's dangerous because it leads to an imbalance in nature. However, today we don't have the possibility to manipulate genes to enhance some genes over the others. We can only know or identify the genes that can express themselves in a performance. This is a generalized look on a genetic mapping, and it's not yet, and I hope God will protect us from this development. We are not at a point where we can manipulate genes in order to make a horse faster or to develop earlier. I hope I answered your question.
And I think they deserve a big round of applause. The breeding panel, absolutely superb. Thank you. I was fascinated. I've never seen people so animated on the top table. Lara, you were saying? Pardon? Yes, you can have my microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Lara Sawaya. Lara? You have a microphone.
First, we want to welcome His Excellency, the Minister of Economy. Thank you for coming, His Excellency Abdallah Bento Al-Marri. Can we give him a big applause?
Yes, lovely to see you, sir.
Our Minister is here to support all of us. Thank you. And now we would like to give the trophies of Sheikh Mansour Festival, thanking all the panel. So I will ask His Excellency on stage, please.
Oh, this is lovely. Thank you, sir. And thank you, Laura. Wasn't that fascinating? Wasn't that a great session? Well done. Should we stand up or?
Girls, can we have you? Yes.
Nice to meet you too. I'm from France.
Nice to meet you. Thank you very much.
On stage.
No, thank you. And thank you for all you have done for Arabian Horse. Thanks a lot.
Big fan of yours.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Great job you've done.
Thank you.
السلام عليكم. هلا حبيبي.
الأخبار.
الله يسلمك. الله يخليك محمد. الله يخليك.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Sir, why were you late?
Running between meetings as well.
I know you are. Well done, and thank you.
جزاك الله خير.
This is lovely, isn't it? It really is. Renee, give them a big round of applause. Oh, Tomo. Oh, sir, thank you very much. Thank you. That is wonderful. Thank you. Wow. Would you hang on to that for me? Thank you. Don't drop it. Please take these photos and send them around the world. That is superb. Everybody look forward. This is the official photo. Breathe in. Thank you very much indeed. So thank you. That is lovely. Well, I think a little break is on the cards. We've got two marvelous sessions to look forward to this afternoon. So just take a little rain check and then we will be back this afternoon. We are live in Abu Dhabi. Stay with us.
وأيضا شهدنا نقاشات جميلة ونقاشات وحوارات بين المولدين المتواجدين، صفوة المولدين مشاهدينا الكرام الموجودين في العالم هنا تحدثوا على مدار ساعة ونصف من الآن. طبعا مشاهدينا الكرام وصلنا معكم لختام هذه الجلسة. الجلسة سوف تبدأ بالاستمرار إن شاء الله بعد استراحة الغداء. أكيد طبعا سوف نكون ناقلين لهذه الجلسات وهي مستقبل سباقات الخيول العربية الأصيلة، وبعد ذلك الإعلام والتلفزيون في عالم سباقات الخيول. في الختام حتى الآن مشاهدينا كان بختام هذه الجلسة تقبلوا تحياتي إلى أن نعود لكم مرة أخرى في الجلسة القادمة.